Welcome to Smells Like Smoke. My name is Trevor DeVage. I'm your host for this podcast where we talk about what does it look like to rescue people by snatching them from the flames of judgment. It comes straight from the scripture, Jude 23, my life verse. And here's the phrase I use all the time. If you don't smell like smoke, getting close enough to the fire to rescue people, maybe you're not doing this faith thing quite right. And let me start with a tension that every serious person of faith eventually runs into. You learn to see clearly, you start to notice patterns, you recognize when something is off. And if you're not careful, clarity turns to cynicism. Discernment turns into suspicion. Awareness turns into arrogance. And today, we're going to talk about what does it mean to spot wolves without becoming one yourself. Because it's possible to protect the flock and still lose your soul in the process of doing so. So the goal that we want to talk about today is discernment without arrogance. And here's what that takes: maturity. So why does this matter? Well, I think this matters because spiritual discernment becomes an essential in how we live our lives. Not everything that looks good is good. Not everything that sounds spiritual is from God. And not everyone who claims authority should be trusted. But here's the danger. The moment discernment becomes pride, it stops protecting people and it actually starts wounding people. So let me speak to men for a few moments. Now, ladies, I know every week when I do this, some of you are like, but we deal with this too. I would agree, but I want to speak to men in culture right now because I really believe men have abdicated their role as spiritual guides and spiritual heads of their households. And that's why partly this podcast exists. Now, ladies, if you're listening to this, lean in, first of all, because these principles apply to all people of faith and all of humanity if you want to know the truth. But let me speak to men, because men who pride themselves on being awake often become unbearable to be around. They see problems everywhere. They trust no one. They listen to no one. And they start by spotting wolves. But the problem is they end up becoming one in the process. So you've heard the old adage, wolves in sheep's clothing. Jesus warned about wolves in sheep's clothing. In fact, that image matters more than we know, because wolves don't announce themselves. You know what wolves do? They blend in. They sound right. They look right. They quote the right language, the right scriptures. They know all the right things. But the issue is not appearance. It's intention. I meet these people in the church all of the time. They come in, and for the first few months, man, they know the scriptures, and they sing loud, and they raise hands, and they're like fervorously worshiping God with other people. But then, if you listen long enough, they start to attack. See, wolves do something interesting. They begin to feed on people. They use people. They evaluate themselves at the expense of others. And Jesus says, here's how you'll know them. You'll know them by their fruit, not by their charisma, not by their confidence, not by their certainty, not by how many scriptures they can quote, not by how much knowledge of Jesus they have, by their fruit. See, wolves usually talk big, know a lot of things, but have no fruit. So why do men love discernment? Well, let's be honest. Discernment feels powerful. It makes you feel informed. It makes you feel ahead of the curve, if you will. It makes you feel like you see what others miss. And that feeling, it's intoxicating, especially for men. See, men like to feel sharp. They like to feel in control. They like to feel right. But discernment without humility is a really, really dangerous game to play, because knowledge without love does not rescue. That's the whole point of this podcast, is helping rescue people from the flames of judgment. See, knowledge without love doesn't rescue, it dominates. Let me say that again. Knowledge without love does not rescue, it dominates other people. So how does pride blind leaders? Well, here's the irony. The moment you think pride is not your problem, it's actually now your problem. Have you ever heard somebody say, I'm the most humble person I know? That statement is a prideful statement. Here's what I know about pride. It rarely announces itself. It actually justifies itself. Pride sounds like, I'm not just telling the truth, but I'm going to tell you the truth without telling me the truth. Or here's what pride sounds like. Someone has to say it. You ever said that? That's pride. Or they can't handle the truth. Now, some of you just quoted A Few Good Men where Jack Nicholson is on trial and he says, I want the truth, right? Remember that? Tom Cruise says, I want the truth. And he was like, you can't handle the truth. See, pride convinces you that you're the exception, that you have the authority and nobody else does. And that's how leaders fall. Not because they lack discernment, but because they stopped listening to others around them. So I live in Tucson. If you're watching this somewhere else, we're in Tucson, Arizona. And I've watched this play out over and over again in my own city. Sitting with men who start with genuine desire to protect the truth, men who want to guard people from harm. And slowly and subtly, something shifts. They stop asking questions. They stop inviting feedback. They stop being teachable. And they're no longer shepherds. They're critics. And critics don't rescue. They isolate. I mean, just watch any news network. They're all critics and pundits. They're not rescuing our country. They're not rescuing our world. They're isolating it. So what's the difference between shepherds and wolves? Here's a simple distinction. Shepherds will bleed for their sheep. Wolves feed on them. Shepherds bleed, wolves feed. Let me say it one more time. Shepherds bleed, wolves feed. Shepherds bleed for the sheep. Wolves feed on sheep. Shepherds protect at personal cost. Wolves protect their platform at all cost. See, shepherds, they stay accountable. Wolves answer to no one. Shepherds are concerned with people. Wolves are concerned with influence. We live in an influencer culture. You know that. Discernment helps you spot the difference. And discernment with humility keeps you from crossing that line. So why does arrogance feel so justified to us? Arrogance often feels justified because it comes from being right. But being right does not give you permission to be cruel. It's like Ricky Bobby, if you go back to watching Talladega Nights, and he said, with all due respect. Just because he said with all due respect, he thought he had permission to say whatever he wanted because he said with all due respect. But being right does not give you permission to be cruel, with all due respect. Truth is not a weapon. It's responsibility. And when men confuse discernment with dominance, they stop rescuing and they start ruling. Let me give that to you one more time. That's something to chew on. When we confuse discernment with dominance, we stop rescuing and we start ruling. That's not the way of Jesus. So what does Jesus say about discernment? Look at how Jesus handled wolves in Scripture. Like, he named deception clearly. He confronted hypocrisy directly. He exposed manipulation without hesitation. But notice something with Jesus. His harshest words were reserved for leaders who use truth to elevate themselves. Whew, that hits. And his gentlest words were reserved for people who were honest about their brokenness. See, that should sober us in our minds and our lives. If your discernment makes you harsh towards people Jesus was gentle with, something is off. If your discernment makes you harsh towards people that Jesus was gentle with, something is off in your soul. So how do you stay alert without becoming hardened in your heart? How do you stay alert without becoming arrogant? I want to give you a few anchors to help you with this. Here's the first one. Stay submitted. Lone wolves are the most dangerous. Healthy people stay accountable to other people. Here's the second thing, check your fruit. If your discernment is producing anger and contempt or isolation, can I just tell you, it needs recalibration. How are you rescuing other people? Here's the third thing, stay curious. Ask questions before drawing conclusions about other people and situations. Here's the fourth thing, remember your own susceptibility. No one is immune to deception, including you and including me. Humility keeps discernment healthy. So let me ask some practical questions that can keep you grounded. Maybe you want to write these down, grab a piece of paper, pause this video, pause this as you're listening, and write these down. Here are a few questions I think that are worth asking yourself regularly, each and every day. Here's the first one. Do people feel safe around me? Like, ask yourself, do people actually feel safe around me? I have a lot of people in my life who don't know Jesus, but they spend a lot of time with me because I'm trying to create an environment that actually keeps them safe around me. I want them to know that they can spend time with me in any given situation, at any given time, at any hour of the day. Do they feel safe in my midst? Do they feel safe spending time with me? Do the people in your life feel safe with you? Does your spouse feel safe with you? Do your friends feel safe with you? Do the people that you work with feel safe with you? Do the people far from God in your life feel like they can actually spend time with you? See, God calls us to live in that kind of environment, to help people know that they are safe in our midst. Here's the next question. Am I quick to critique than I am to care? Am I quicker to critique than I am to care? See, a lot of times we're quick to critique people in situations and others, and we forget to care for them. What if we started with care? Oh, or how about this? Do I listen as much as I speak? The old adage, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak. Like, this is one of the biggest ones for me, is I need to shut up more and listen more. Or how about, do I assume the worst or do I seek clarity? Do I assume the worst or do I seek clarity? See, the answers to those questions reveal whether discernment is doing its job. So what does this mean for you and me? Well, honestly, this is a leadership issue. Strong people protect, but strong people also serve. Strength without humility becomes tyranny. Discernment without love becomes destruction. The world does not need people who are right. It needs people who are wise. Wisdom knows when to speak. Wisdom knows when to listen. Wisdom knows when to wait. But discernment and rescue work is where we really need to lean in. See, this matters deeply for rescuing people from the flames of judgment, because rescue work puts you close to broken people, puts you close to messy people, it puts you close to confused people. So if you approach them with suspicion instead of compassion, they're never going to trust you. And without trust, rescue can't happen. See, discernment should make you safer, not scarier. So what is the role of self-awareness? Here's a hard truth. The wolves you need to watch for most closely are not always external. Sometimes they're internal. Ego, insecurity, need for validation, need to be seen as right. Those things quietly turn shepherds into predators. See, self-awareness keeps the heart soft. So what's the hope? Here's the good news. You don't have to choose between discernment and humility. You can have both. Jesus offers wisdom without pride, clarity without cruelty. He offers strength without domination. And when people walk in that balance, people feel protected instead of threatened. See, that's leadership. That's rescue. So let me give you a closing challenge. Here's your challenge for this week. I want you to pay attention to your posture. Like, not what you believe, but how you carry what you believe. Are you alert or suspicious? Are you humble or are you hardened in your heart? Are you protective or are you controlling? And then ask someone you trust for honest feedback, because discernment works best in the hands of the humble. Well, this just smells like smoke. A podcast dedicated to figuring out how do we rescue people from the absolute flames of judgment. And we're learning to spot the counterfeits without becoming counterfeits ourselves. Now, the next episode, we're going to move into kind of part 4 of this podcast, The Committed. And we're going to be talking about empty containers can't pour and why burnout is not a badge of honor. So do me a favor. If you like this podcast, would you share it? Would you let somebody know about it? Would you maybe go review it? And then do me a favor, leave a comment. Leave a question. If you're on Spotify, I think you can leave questions there. If you watch this on YouTube, you can put questions there. You can follow us on Instagram at Smells Like Smoke Pod. We would love to engage with you in all of those places. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, stay humble, and stay close to the fire. We'll see you next week.